friends, I'm going to be doing a beginner handstand class. So basic handstands, this is if you do not have a handstand at all, or maybe a 5-second to 10-second, and you're not consistent and you want to get your handstand to become longer. So we are going to work on both body types so we can find a stacked, long, straight joints on top of each other line. So sometimes we're tight and that stacked line is hard, and sometimes we are mobile. So I'm more hypermobile and I have to work more on strength and stability. I will show you both ways, and so you can analyze your own body and be able to do your handstand. So first, even with a mobile body like me, I will open up my thoracic back. When we're in a handstand and we look like a banana handstand, so what happens is our shoulders are closed and we do a handstand like this, and then our back starts to arch in the handstand. And I'll show you on the wall when we get to that. You're going to want to be able to stack joints on top of joints, wrists on top of shoulders, and so forth all the way down. So sometimes our backs are locked up and we need to open up our backs and our lats in order to get into that position. I like to start with this double ball. And what the double ball does is it opens up the muscles around the spine. And then after, I'll go to roller, and then I go to yoga ring, and that's if you're a real mobile like me. So with the double ball, you're going to take it right in your spine around this area. And you can go up or lower or higher depending on where it hurts the most. You're going to take your arms over your head, and then you're going to press the backs of your hands into the ground. I want you to inhale and open up your ribs, and then exhale and press in while driving your hands down into the ground. You can go from lower in your back or even higher in your back, and you're going to spend about 5 minutes here. After the muscles are opened up in your back, you're ready to distract the spine. So there's two components usually to where when you're having a problem with opening up, and it is usually a joint problem and a muscular problem, and it can become stability problem and a whole bunch of things. We can get into that later though. So next we're going to be opening up our spine, and so now if you are a little bit tight, you're going to use a roller. And your roller, you're going to get again thoracically up on your back. I don't want it to go on your neck, and I want your neck to be able to be placed down on the ground. So if your neck is like this and up and you can't get your head down, you'll just put a yoga block on there to make it comfortable until you are able to get your head down on the ground. Again, you're going to press your hands down into the ground. Inhale, and then exhale, and press in. So you'll spend some time opening up there. You can even grab a weight or a furniture underneath your couch where your hands are to help open up a little bit more. When you've gone past the roller, then you're going to go to the ring. So this is where it took a while for me to warm up here. You're going to feel like you're going to be breaking in half. So just be cautious and careful. If you feel like you're going to break something or tear something, you are. So you just need to intuitively be aware of where you should go and just take steps into progressing. You don't come straight to this from the beginning. Start with the steps that I've shown you. But this is just if you're a little bit more mobile and want to get deeper into the back stretch. You're going to try to place your low back against it, and then you can reach around and grab the roller, and then you're going to pull into it. Elbows stay in, and pull your hands and drive it deep into your back. You can even take your bum up, posteriorly tuck, and then pull your bum down. So there's a few different ways. I always start with opening that up, because especially if you're tight thoracically and even in your lats, you'll eventually get impingement and shoulder problems from doing handstands and a banana handstand are closed. Now when we first start handstands, it's not gonna look perfect. So we might be looking like a little bit of a banana, and that's okay. We'll just work on closing our shape and stacking our shape. So don't get discouraged just because it's not perfect at first. It takes many months, years. Okay, we're gonna go into wrist strengthening and warming up. I typically, because my wrists are super mobile, I don't do tons of stretches. But again, we have some bodies that are very tight in their wrists, and then when you try to do a stacked straight line, you will not be able to get into line because your wrists don't have the mobility to stack up. They'll be like this, and then your shape is not straight too. So I like to go into a straddle just so I start lengthening and stretching. It doesn't have to be extreme, and I tuck my pelvis a little bit, and we'll go into blinkers. So I do these when it's cold outside sometimes, and I need my wrists warm up. I always do this if I'm a beginner too. I tend to warm up now with planks and handstands. I've gone past the progressions of this kinds of stuff, but when we're starting, we warm up like this. Then I'll take it overhead, and I'm gonna try to cover my ears, shrug, because this is the position we'll be in a handstand, and pull my ribs in. So we're now starting to get our alignment of handstands. If you can't sit like this because your adductors are too tight, your inside legs, then you're gonna have to work on that, because that will be going into a straddle press and pike press. And then I go out, and same thing. I don't know if you can see little blinkers. Okay, we're gonna go into wrist relevés now. Some people call them wrist push-ups. Now, let's go back a little bit, maybe to the side. I want you to not sink in your core, but still keep your core tight. And then we're gonna keep hips in line with knees, so not back like this. I want you to take your shoulders over your wrists. So shoulders are over wrists for some weight purposes. And then I want your pointer fingers to be tipped to straight ahead. So not in and not bended elbows. So we're gonna wrap our elbows around, wrap our shoulders up. All right, rolling up nice and slow to our knuckles, and then rolling down. When it's cold outside, I take it slow, and I'll do about 10 to 20 of these. And then I get faster too, so after I've done a set or two, then I'll come up and I'll go a little faster. You can progress on this one to taking your knees out and dropping your hips down and coming up and down, but you need to come up and down on your hands together. So if it comes where one is like up, then maybe you need to take your knees a little closer and make sure you can take your hands up with the same. Can you guys see me with the sun? Okay, and then we're gonna go to a little bit of a shoulder warm up and going to a little bit of mobility. So arms are gonna come right straight in front of you, and you're going to rotate. And now you're gonna be doing more reps than this. I'm just showing you the technique. And then rolling around. You are going to be trying to drive your fingers right straight to your chin. So you're fighting for range of motion as you do this. So fight. You'll do about 10 of these. And then you're gonna switch. So now taking your fingers towards you and still keeping, see my elbows? They're still really bent. I'm hypermobile, so mine will look hyperextended. Yours might not, so it's okay. Now you're going to fight without elevating or protracting your shoulders. So pull them down and back, and ribs are gonna stay in. Wrap around and still keep them straight. So again, about 10 of these. Okay, now we can do a little bit of mobility on the floor. So let's do a narrow stance, elbows together, fingers nice and wide, and we're gonna wrap around, little circles and around, one direction for 10, and then the other direction for 10 here too. So you can pause it and do them if you need to. All right, now if you'd like to, you can go through that whole thing again if you have time. If not, just make sure you do all the reps. I'm gonna go over basic shoulder alignment. So we have our clavicle right here, and if you follow your clavicle, I don't know if you can see with the light, to this bony surface, it's a little joint, the acromioclavicular joint, is where your finger, your first little finger, is going to go to. So that's where you're going to go with both of your hands. Now, how you find that on the ground, it doesn't have to be so technical. I just like to tell you where we're going for, is you just hang your arms. So this is my natural, normal stance. And just go down on the ground. Oh, there's my perfect handstand safety for my shoulders. Now there's going to be handstands in the future where you go really narrow, or even cross, or really wide. But for right now, when we're learning basics, we don't want to hurt our shoulders, and we want to be doing handstands for forever. So we're going to build the strength in good form first. Now with your fingers, again, they're not pointed in. They're going to be like an L, like you're making an L, so your fingers are pointing nice and straight. Your elbow pits roll forward, and your shoulders roll back. Now, if you've ever heard that you need to press your knuckle in the ground, you don't need to push your knuckle in the ground. People like me, really mobile people like me, wrists, my wrists are so mobile, I'll be going over and I tense my fingers a lot. And so you'll see people with knuckles up like that, and I don't actually really touch my knuckle too much, and that's fine. So you don't have to focus on knuckles pressing in. But what I do want you to focus on pressing in is your little fingertips. So right now, stand up for a second. We're going to stand up and imagine somebody's pressed you to push you over on your back. So somebody presses me, and to stop from falling over, just notice what part of your foot's grabbing into the ground. And if you notice, it is your toes, the tips of your toes. So to prevent us from falling really backwards and forward, we're going to really grab with our fingertips. And in time, it will make sense and be easier. Also, we are going to spread our fingers really, really wide. When we spread our fingers really, really wide, then it gives us better balance. So imagine going snowshoeing and stepping on a really powdery snow with just your shoes. And your feet, you sink through, right? You don't have balance. But when you take your snowshoes and they're really wide, you can have the balance on the snow more. Okay, so wider will give you more balance. Narrow, you won't be able to manipulate the direction of your handstand. Okay, so we are going to we're going to start the handstand training now. So I like to warm up with core strengthening, because we will need that when we do press-ups, and even in the straight handstand line, we need to make sure we're nice and tight. So these are just basic core strengthening exercises and shoulder warm-ups. So we're going to go to plank protraction and retraction. So now we're going to take our handstand form. So from here on out, I want you to take your handstand form with any plank you do, or mountain climbers, or if you're in any other class that requires a plank position, just get used to putting your hands straight out where they should be, rotating your elbow pits out and your shoulders back, because then it becomes muscle memory, and then you'll always place your hands down where they should be, and we won't have to think about it. So if you ever played a musical instrument or had anything that you need to practice a lot, when you first start the piano or the guitar, it's just really hard at first and your fingers don't go into the places, but when you keep on practicing, it becomes muscle memory, and it's easy to you just go straight to the keys or straight to the guitar. Same thing here. At first it's going to feel funny or maybe too narrow or pull you off in balance, but if you can get the good form first, you won't have to backtrack and fix it, and that's a lot harder. So whenever you place it down, you'll, just like a musical instrument, you'll get used to it and it'll become normal and natural. Okay, so anyways, plank protraction and retraction. Let me scoot back a little bit. When you're in your plank position, I don't want an arched back and I don't want a sagging back. I want your feet together, and I want you to take your bum and posteriorly tuck. Now we're going to pull our shoulder blades and pinch, and then open our shoulder blades. Pinch and open. What I don't want to happen is I don't want it through your traps. I don't want to shrug and it down, because we're getting our shoulder blades used to just warmed up really. So I want you to take the back of your back and you're going to draw down, pinch, and open. See the difference? Rather than up and down. Now in a handstand, we're gonna need that shrug position, but we're warming up our shoulders right now. So hopefully you did your 10 while I'm talking. Okay, let's go to a hollow hold. Hollow hold will teach you the ribs together. So lots of times in handstand, people will say, pull your ribs in, pull your ribs in. I do both cues of if you're falling out of your handstand. Sloppily wise, I guess it's becoming a banana handstand. You lose the shrug, so that's arguably one of the most important parts of the handstand is the shrug, and we start losing our core position. So it starts looking, the handstand starts looking like that. So we're gonna go into our hollow hold and tuck. Okay, so we're gonna try to press the back of our back onto the mat and scoop like there's an ice cream scoop, scooping our stomach out, and we keep that position. So I want you to lift. I hope you can see with this sun. Okay, we're going to push it back into the ground. Tuck, tuck, tuck. Lift your shoulder blades off of the ground. Extend your arms out, and here's the hold. So this is an advanced position. If this hurts your back at all, then you're gonna come to a level 1 and just open up your elbows, place your hands in your head in your hands, and do the lifting through the abdominals, not through the neck muscles. Imagine there's an orange underneath your chin, so you're a little bit tucked. You can also extend out for the next level, and then hold your hollow hold. Okay, so that's gonna work up to a whole minute. So you'll be there for about 30 seconds to a minute, and then we're gonna do that twice. So you go to your, again, protraction, retraction, 10 sets, 10 reps of that, and then back to your hollow hold, 2 sets. Okay, next on, we're gonna go to a twist, and that will give us shoulder stability for our ability to stay shrugged. It's gonna give us core strength and a little bit of compression in our hips. So now coming straight out, we're gonna cross front leg in front. You're gonna take your arm out, and you're not gonna be stacked this time. Lots of times I say stacked, but today we're gonna build the strength in our shoulder. So you are going to push and take your shoulder right in line with your wrist. But stay strong, so I don't want you to sag at all and sag here. Lift, push, and come up to a side plank. You're gonna come to a T position, but squeeze your bum, lift your ribs, and then compress. So now we're compressing, driving our bum to the ceiling, chest to our legs, and my shoulder right here is pushing and shrugging to my ears. So again, we're gonna go back to our T position, building strong, stable shoulders. So not sinking in, push, 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 lift, lift, lift. And then you can sit back down, but we're gonna sit back down and come away. Slow, slow, but staying strong, staying back down. Okay, let's do another one. So now we're gonna lift back up to our T position. Squeeze your bum, lift your hips, stay strong. Now we're gonna rotate and lift our hips. Compress your chest to your legs, and really shrug, shrug, shrug in your shoulder. Come back to that T position, and then sit down, pushing away. All right, I want 5 to 10 of those on each side. So you're gonna do the other side, so you can pause the video and do the other side. And then we're gonna go to the teaser. So we just built shoulder stability for our handstand. We're warming up our shoulder in our handstand, and now we're gonna get compression strength throughout our quads. So the teaser is you're going to, option 1, if you cannot do the teaser yet, then you'll just do a rotating down, rounding, drawing your stomach in, lifting, and do a single leg lift and try to compress. So you're fighting for compression, and then you can put your leg back down, roll down one vertebrae at a time. So rolling down one vertebrae at a time. Sitting frame here. And then you circle your arms around, but keep your ribs in like a handstand. We're still practicing the ribs in. So this is ribs out. We don't do this in a handstand. You're going to keep your ribs in, roll up one vertebrae at a time, and then you can take your knee to your chest if you can. Fight for compression, and then you can come down. This is level 1. Now coming down nice and slow. All right, let's go to the full teaser. Frame now. Okay, so doing your circle, lifting up in your compression. So this is a Pilates teaser, as some people call them, a V-sit, or gymnasts do it too. But you're going to try to compress your legs. Ooh, compress to your head, and then coming down, rolling down nice and slow, circling, and then coming up. Compress. So then again, we're going to do 10 of those. So that's our second set of core. So then we're going to go to, remember, the seated twist. That's Pilates also. And you're going to do 5 to 10 on one side, 5 to 10 on the other side, and then another set of V-sits. Okay, so after our core strengthening, we're going to go into stretches. So stretches, we're going to start opening up our shoulders. So opening up our shoulders. Going to down dog and then into a puppy dog stretch. Okay, so in our down dog, we're going to start lengthening our hamstrings. So lengthening our hamstrings, I want you to keep your heels on the ground, flex your quads and press back. So some of us might be like this, and that's okay. But if you can engage your quads, then it lengthens your hamstrings. So see, get more of a stretch in the back because of that. We can also start anteriorly tipping our pelvis. So if we start pushing our bum to the ceiling, we'll lengthen our hamstrings a little bit more. And now you're going to drive your chest down to the ground. And for those of you that are mobile like me, you're going to do your down dog different than somebody that's tight. So let me show you closer up. So somebody that's mobile like me, I don't want you sinking into your shoulder joints because you're going to need to build stability and the ability to push. So with your down dog, instead of sinking in, can you tell? Sinking in like this, you're going to push like that and cover your ears. Okay, so you're going to build stability. But those of you that are tight, I actually want you to hang in that a little bit and press thoracically. So instead of those of you that are tight pressing like that, I want you to go ahead and hang down. So, okay, so we're in our down dog, and we're gonna do maybe 10 reps, or you can hang in there, or you can start pressing down and down. Just trying to get your chest opened. And I did, when I first started doing handstands, and to this day, I still do tons of these. We're gonna go into a puppy dog stretch right after this, so even more thoracic opener. So now our puppy dog stretch is not like a child's pose. We pull our bum back. We're not pulling our bum back. We're keeping knee in line with hips. And then you press your chest down to the ground. So now, if you can, if you're mobile enough, don't start out like this with your chin tipped up because you'll hurt your neck. So some of us will have to be tucked at first. But those of you that have a very mobile back, you can come in and tip your chin up like this. And those of you that need even a little bit more, that are wanting to eventually go into the hollow back handstands, will go to the wall. And when you come to the puppy dog in the wall, you're going to make sure your heels are in line with your bum. So I don't want your feet back like this. I don't want you to come to the wall like this. I want your feet in line with bum, hinge, and pull down. So So the minute we start bending our knees or taking our feet back too far, we're not getting a thoracic back opener. All right, so next we're gonna open our hips and then do another shoulder opener. We're gonna go to tummy facing or a prone position. You'll hear this a lot. And I want you to take your arm not straight out and not straight out to the side. You're gonna go to a diagonal position. You're gonna watch your shoulder. So make sure it doesn't tip down or protract. You're gonna pull it away and down and back. Now you're gonna rotate. If this hurts your low back, we'll start out with not doing a hip flexor stretch. So you'll just rotate till you can feel the stretch. So you don't want your ear on this. You don't want your arm way back like this. You're gonna make sure you're getting a pec stretch. This hand will push you into it, okay? Now this might hurt some people's back, so you can stay like this. If it doesn't hurt your back, you can put your head on the ground too, so it's not too aggressive. If it doesn't hurt your back, you're going to take, let me make sure you guys can see. Take this leg and pull back behind you. So what you're trying to do is place your heel on the ground. This knee opens up back as far as you can. Your bum squeezes and opens up your pelvis. If you're in an arched back position or an anterior pelvic tilt, it will pinch your discs. So you need to make sure you're nice and tucked, and maybe your leg will be like this for now, and that's okay. So let's see what it looks like from the back side. You will be in a position like this on the ground. Okay. So we're gonna go side to side on both sides, just like that, for about 10, 5, 10. And then you go back to your down dog and back to puppy dog stretch. And then we're gonna go to wall thoracic rotations. So again, we're still opening up our back. I see that in so many people. Their back is just too tight. We live our lives very sedentary and on our phones, and we get stuck in this position. And that's why I love handstands so much, because truthfully, it helps you to have that alignment, and it will translate into so many other exercises that you do. If you like to weight lift, shoulder press, we'll have that opening up, bench press. I have lots of guys in my classes that are power lifters, which is so fun. And they have solved their shoulder problems and been able to bench max like 25 pounds extra because they are doing these stretches and opening up their shoulders. And so just for the fact of having a healthy, opened up body, this basic handstand class is great for that too. Let's go to thoracic rotations. Okay, can you see me? So now we're on the wall. I want you to squeeze your bum and press your hips forward. We're going to use breath with this because lots of the times we hold our breath. So you're going to inhale and then exhale on the twist and put one arm behind you. Now you're not going to let your hip come forward when you do this, and your hand might be a little bit not so far back. I don't care how far your hand gets, I more care about your pelvis. So you're rotating just as far as you can, and maybe if you even need to put your hand right here, and just remind yourself to stay tipped, stay squeezed, and then you're going to rotate and squeeze. So inhale, and then exhale. Let out all the air in your diaphragm, and you'll feel your obliques while opening up your thoracic back. Inhale, and then exhale. Squeeze your bum and press forward. So what it's looking like is when you rotate, you're not twisting like this. Rather, you squeeze and you rotate, or you squeeze and you rotate. So none of that. Got it? Or else it becomes just your hips are moving and it takes away from the movement in your thoracic back. We're trying to isolate our hips so that all the movement comes through your thoracic or upper back. Okay, the next one is a roller shoulder opener. So for everybody that's tight again, you're going to get the roller and you're going to go to a prone position, so on your stomach, And I want you to start the handstand alignment here. Let's see, we'll go on a demo. So that means ankles together. You're gonna take your bum squeeze and then pull your stomach off of the ground. Imagine you just laid down on a beach towel that was black and you're like, ooh, that's hot. So pull your stomach up and in, and then you're going to try to push your shoulder, your armpits down to the ground, and your wrists are gonna go into the roller. So tummy in, bum squeezed, and press down. Now, for those of you that are mobile, like me, you're not gonna need this drill. So you'll need more of a stabilizing drill for your shoulders. And so I'm gonna have you, instead of doing this, you'll go into a pike position. So you're in a pike position, and you're gonna start shrugs. So now, let me go towards you so you can see. So really draw your chest to your legs, and you're gonna cover your ears, and then push down. Cover your ears, and push down. Okay, does that make sense? I don't know if you're gonna hear me. So when you're in that compressed pike position, what's compression? Compression is leg to your chest. You'll hear that a lot. So I want you to stay in a deep V with that compression, and you're going to shrug and then retract. Shrug and push and retract. So that makes sense, right? We've got to build some shoulder stability, because when we're in our handstand, we'll just kind of sway and fall out. We don't have that locked in position. Okay, so we will go through all those stretches twice, so you can pause and go through that. And finally, we get to the handstand. So beginners, I've noticed when I first start my beginners classes, is that we crawl up the wall and then we don't know how to get from out of the wall. Let me show you what I want first, though, is we want to be able to get to 3 1-minute handstand holds, and that's chest facing the wall. So when I first started, it was like 10 seconds, so that's okay. Once you can get to 3 1-minute holds, then you can go on to the next steps. But until then, I want you to build up the strength in your shoulders to go on to the next steps, and I'll show you what I mean by that. But let me show you the form that I want on the wall, and then I'll show you how to get down from the wall too, so we don't collapse like this, because it's sometimes scary. Oh, and I wanted to tell you, for beginners too, sometimes we don't even have the strength to come up to the wall, so we can actually even go to a bench. So on the bench, what it will look like, so here's our bench. I'm gonna even look a little closer. We'll take our feet up on the bench, and I mean, if you don't have hamstring mobility, that's okay, you can bend. But if you have hamstring mobility, you can go press. So now we're getting our hands nice and in line with our shoulders, and we just hold. That's it. We're just gonna hold. So that will be level 1. But remember, when we go up to the wall, I went over form, and I want our hands there. I want you to shrug, and I'm gonna show you what I want with the alignment right now against the wall. Okay, so now we're gonna go against the wall, and you can walk up. If you have the mobility, you can split up, and then you don't have to walk as far, whatever you want. So now you're gonna walk back really, really close. Your hands are in line, and I want you to take your feet together and squeeze. Squeeze your bum, pull your ribs in, and push. And here's what I want it to look like. What I don't want it to look like is this. Sometimes I see this, where chests are against the wall like this, or actually even the opposite. I see that. So we want to just push strong, push together. Now to get out of it, you're going to do like a cartwheel. So you take your foot and pull it down. And I don't know if you can see me very well. Let me come over. Okay, so you drag your foot down, 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 down the wall, like you're gonna do a cartwheel and it pulls you out. Okay, that's the easiest way to come out of that. Oh good, the sun's going away. Oh, maybe not so much. Okay, so what I was saying, if you couldn't hear me up there, was you're going to make sure your ribs are in, your tummy's tight, your bum squeeze, ankles together, and you're shrugged. That's it. 3 1-minute holds of that. Okay, so beginners, you're done. That's all you're gonna do. You're gonna do that every day until you can get a minute. Now, when you have that, you'll go on to the next steps. And the next steps is gonna be toe pulls, and there's gonna be heel pulls. So toe pulls is preventing falling chest forward. I'll show you. So in our handstand, falling down like this, okay? Heel pulls is preventing falling backwards, like this. You're like, ah. So from now on, what we're trying to do is build the reactive skills in your fingertips. So in a handstand, we want to find balance. And sometimes we fall this way, sometimes we fall that way. So sometimes we're going to fall on our backs, sometimes we're going to fall on our stomachs, and that's what toe pulls and heel pulls do, and they're a must. I trained that for months and months, and it got me able not to, I still fall all the time, but fall less, I guess. Get the handstand. Okay, so let's do toe pulls. So toe pulls is chest facing first. We're gonna find our handstand line and we're gonna pull away. I don't want you to kick off the wall, or I don't want you to take 1 foot off the wall. I'll show you. Okay, so we have our toe pulls. Oh, I don't know if you can see my toes. Okay, let me shift this up a little bit. Okay. So, yeah, okay. So now squeeze. And I want you to shift your shoulders to your fingertips, or maybe not that close. So tummy's really tight. You can shift a little bit, and then you're just floating off and you're closing your shoulders. So close, 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 and then back. So shift forward, and then close, close, or open, sorry. Open, open, open your shoulders, and then go back. So we get it, drag, and then open, 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 and then back. Okay, so that makes sense, right? What we're doing is we're taking a shifting in our shoulders forward, maybe not all the way to our fingertips at first because it's hard and maybe you want a partner standing behind you. So you open. So I'm going to be closing my shoulders, so pushing forward and then going back to an open position. Does that make sense? So sometimes what I see people do, and I'll show you what I don't want, and it will happen at first, and that's okay because we're learning, but I don't want kicking off. Okay, so I don't want kicking off like this, and see my back is arching like that. You need to stay strong and tight. I also don't want 1 foot pulling you off like that. Okay, so that makes sense. So that is preventing us. Okay, next one, heel pulls. Heel pulls is preventing us from falling backwards. I get confused sometimes, so I hope I don't confuse you. Okay, so let's work on the kick up before we go backwards. So I see people having a hard time with kick ups initially. So if you can't kick up to the wall, to pull back, to do the heel pull, practice these first. So we're gonna come to a strong, straight, and if you're in gymnastics, you can take your straight line down. If you haven't done gymnastics and you want to do this basically at first, I just take my hands down first.
So you want to create a very strong straight line with your back leg. So even my toe, see my toe? I don't want that not bent, because then it doesn't create strength in my glutes and posterior chain. So I want it so strong. And then I bend and get the explosion from this leg. So I'm going to stay strong, bend, and kick. Top the wall, and you can come down. Bend, top the wall, and come down. Now you can do the other leg too. So you'll bend. Now remember, if you bend, and it ends up looking like a donkey kick. I see a lot when people aren't strong through their back leg, which looks like this. I also want you to be cautious and conscious of your shoulder and your wrist. So you want to keep shoulder in line with your wrist with the kick up. So if you're kicking up and it goes like this first, so then there's so much you have to travel and you don't find that straight line. So when I kick up, I keep in line. So now, see, I'm nice and in line. I bend, see, my shoulder's not moving. I'm not going back and forth. So bend and then kick up. Makes sense? So if you've never kicked up before, then you're gonna want to practice a few kick-ups. If you have the kick-ups, then we're gonna go to heel pulls. Now the reason why I do handstands chest facing the wall is because it places you in that straight line and you're less likely to do a banana handstand, which is dumping in your low back and hurting your low back. So be cautious, and hopefully by now you have the strength to hold that straight line. And even if I'll show you banana handstand right now, what I don't want in your heel pulls. Okay, so we're gonna go into our kick up. And you can go pretty close, that's okay. Now a banana handstand is falling and bending your arms, and see, I'm in a banana handstand. So I need to push really strong, keep nice and straight, and then I'm going to pull with my fingertips and pull my feet off the wall. So now I pull my toes, find the line, and then come back. So then again, I'm not gonna pull like this. So I see that a lot. I see people pulling like that. Keep it strong, and pull, and then return, okay? So again, you're gonna do 3 to 5. 3 to 5 is pretty exhausting. So you will do toe pulls, heel pulls, toe pulls, heel pulls, and do 3 sets of that, 3 to 5. You'll find that line. I feel like I'm forgetting doing something with those heel pulls. I think we're good though. So next up, some drills. So if you get toe pulls and heel pulls really good, we're gonna go on a little further and still work on trying not to fall forward, backward, so we can keep that straight line. That's why at the beginning of class when I said this is a beginner class, but it also is a class for somebody that just has a 5 to 10 second handstand and they want to improve their handstand and get longer time. This is what does it, helps you find that. So the reason why we use the wall also, so we could do tons and tons and tons of kick-ups, and you haven't really spent a lot of time in the actual handstand finding the balance. So we want to use the wall to build up strength, to feel what it feels like in balance, and then it will progress you. Oh, I remember what it was in the heel pulls I wanted to tell you. In your heel pulls, when you pull, it's with your fingertips a lot. So you're gonna really pull with your fingertips rather than kick and push off. And also, you'll use your stomach muscles here. So sometimes because we might be in a banana handstand, we're gonna really posteriorly tuck and tighten while drawing Y with our fingers, pulling, okay? That's it. That's an important cue. Okay, so now we're gonna go into a little bit more challenging drills to prevent us from falling forward and backwards. The first one is a 90-degree toe pull. So how you find this, you're gonna back up against the wall, and here's your distance. Toe to knee, hands. Now you're gonna turn around. And you can just kick up on the wall, and that's fine. So you can kick up on the wall, take your feet down to a 90-degree, and now look at my back. I'm in a little bit of an arch, so I need to squeeze my bum. Tuck. So now I'm really tucked. Now I'm gonna try to pull, and maybe I need to walk back a little bit. You'll find it. I'm gonna try to pull my toes off the wall, but not kick. So now I use my fingertips and I pull off, but I keep tucked. And then I can tap again. So not pulling like this. I want you to stay tucked and pull. Okay, so now what that is doing is we're in that 90-degree. We're adding a little bit more weight. We're adding a pull to our lower back too. So if you don't keep tucked and tight, you might feel it in your low back. And if you feel it in your low back, then I would go back to, okay, my other phone closed for a second. Okay, I would go back to just doing heel pulls. Okay, the next drill you can do to prevent you falling forward or chest forward is doing tucks and a single leg draw in, and this will help you find the handstand also with the wall. So you'll come up to the wall, now your chest facing the wall, and if you want to try, if you've been doing this for a little while, you can do a jump up to the wall, and you'll just bend and straddle up. Sometimes I prefer doing that instead. Okay, so you're gonna have to find the distance here, and you're gonna come into a tuck position. So you have about a 90-degree, and if your back is arching like that, you might need to walk back a little bit. So we tuck our back, we're gonna draw our leg down and find the handstand. So this toe is not going too far back, we're finding that line, and then we're gonna draw our leg up, put your toe on the wall, lift this leg and find the line. So find the strong line, draw into a 90-degree tuck. Lift up, place your toe back on, find the line, and draw in. If you have this and you want to go on further, you can try to find the handstand for a second, and maybe even then draw your leg in. Okay, so there's some drills that give you a little bit more challenge. Now remember, this is just a basic class to build strength and find the balance. If you want a further instruction, then I can do that too. You'll just have to let me know on shapes and all that kinds of stuff. Okay, so that's everything that I want you to do. So homework is I want every single day, or at least every other day, and it's gonna be what feels best for your body. So when I first started this, I could only do 10 minutes. That's all I could do against the wall, and then I was pooped out, and that's it. And that's great, and some days it's like that still. So if you're not consistent with this, then you won't find the handstand, but I promise you, if you do this every other day, or especially if you do it every day, then you'll find the balance in the handstand really fast. And I think I covered everything. So anyways, I'm super excited to teach you the basics, and hope you have a great day.